right. Well, we're back another week with the Watchdogs at noon, and we have a special guest today, Julius, and so excited to have, as we have been with our trend, we're having our elected officials come on and talk more about what they're doing.
Yes, we have Mr. Wade Herring, candidate for Congress. Glad to have you today, Mr. Herring.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
So
Okay.
we won't keep you too long. We know Mr. Herring's out on the campaign trail, as a matter of fact, preparing for a runoff, which will be very soon. And so, for those who have not already voted, make sure you remember to vote in the runoff because, as we talk about often on this platform and this show, your vote is your voice. And if you don't provide your voice, then you can't complain and you can't give feedback. So, Mr. Herring, we're glad to have you and thank you for sharing your time today. We are, and Julius might get mad with me when I say this, but we are the #1 watch show in the Coastal Empire as far as virtual goes. So glad to have you. But let's begin with if you could tell us who you are, Mr. Herring, and what kind of inspired you to run for the 1st Congressional District.
Sure. Glad to be here, and thank you for this opportunity. As you said, the runoff is on Tuesday, the 21st. It's important for everybody who's eligible to vote to go vote and to make their voices heard, because that is how we participate in this great democracy of ours. I grew up in Macon, Georgia. My dad had been in the Army, and then he went to work for vocational rehabilitation, helping disabled people get training and education and jobs. My mother, who's still alive, was a public school teacher for 30 years in the Bibb County school system. And I learned from my parents the importance of service and giving back. I learned from my parents that government can do good things in ordinary people's lives. They were both frontline public servants. We were a church-going family. I learned from my parents, to whom much is given, much is expected in return. I've worked hard all my life. I had my first job when I was 14 years old. I dug out ditches in a pecan grove down in Perry, Georgia, down the road from Macon. I worked one summer outside of Walterboro, South Carolina, on a tobacco farm. And when we weren't in the fields, we were in the woods baling up pine straw and forking it up and baling it up to sell to nurseries. Very hard physical labor. When I went to law school, I was highly motivated because I never wanted to do that kind of physical labor again. But the point is, I've done that labor and I know what it's like. I went to law school at the University of Georgia. That's where I met my wife. She and I have been married for 39 years. We have 2 adult children, a son who lives in Atlanta and a daughter who lives in Winston-Salem. And thanks to my son and his wife, we have a grandson now as of December 30th. And that little boy is another reason I'm running, is because I am very, very concerned about the future of our country and the legacy, or the lack of a legacy, that we are leaving our children and our grandchildren. I came to Savannah in 1985 to work with Malcolm McLean, and it was my great privilege to work with him the last 15 years of his life, side by side. And of course, it was Malcolm who, during the early 60s, as mayor of the city of Savannah, sat down with leaders like W.W. Law and Eugene Gaston, sat down with them and asked them, what do you want? What do you need? And it was over that hot summer of 1963 that, working together as a community, W.W. Law, Eugene Gadsden, Malcolm McLean, and of course, many, many others, peacefully integrated the city of Savannah before the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And when Martin Luther King Jr. came to Savannah in January of 64, famously said that Savannah was the most integrated city south of the Mason-Dixon. When Mr. McLean ran for re-election, he was voted out of office. There was white backlash against him, and he never returned to politics. But I always admired his courage and his willingness to take a stand and his willingness to be fair. And that his example is another reason I'm running. And so I've practiced law here and been part of the community here. working with Frank Callan Boys and Girls Club, Georgia Legal Services, Georgia Appleseed, Citizen Advocacy. So I've been involved in the community, quietly working to solve problems and to take care of people. And then on January 6th, we saw a riot in the Capitol. It was planned. It was premeditated. We knew that in 2021. We know it better now because of the work of the committee. And then that night of January 6th, we saw Buddy Carter, as one of the 6 from the state of Georgia, stand to overturn the election. And it was wrong. He violated his oath of office. It was dangerous, what it means for our democracy. And I decided I needed to get off the sidelines and to publicly state this cannot stand. And so that is why I am running for Congress. So that's a little bit, and obviously we'll talk some more, but that's some detail about where I come from, who I am, and how I got here and why I'm running.
Well, it seems like you answered question 1 and 2 for me, but a part of that, because my next question was, where have you been? That most of the voters didn't know you until you threw your hat in the ring, but you summed it all up there. So my follow up for that question would be: do you think that Buddy Carter should be removed from office, and those that were in, they're having the January 6th now, and some of those when I'm sure that when it's all finished, some of those people, if he violated his oath of office, if anytime you violate your oath of office, you should be removed from office. And I know that y'all are church members and everything, but still, when you some things are bigger than your church member or your friendship, especially when you're talking about patriotism and the country. So how do you feel about him doing that, and what should happen with him besides you beating him in November?
Well, he definitely should be removed from office. He demonstrated with his vote on January the 6th, and previously he was part of the lawsuit against the state of Georgia and the other states. He demonstrated that he put Trump and politics ahead of the Constitution. He put it ahead of the country. He put Trump and politics ahead of the people of this district. And so he most definitely should be removed from office. An oath is a promise. An oath is something that you're bound to do to tell the truth. And with his vote, he violated that oath. He violated the truth of the facts and the law about the election. When I was a boy and my parents would catch me in a small fib, they would say, "Son, if we can't trust you in small things, how can we trust you in big things?" Well, Buddy Carter has demonstrated he cannot be trusted with the big thing, our election. He cannot be trusted with the fundamental thing, our election and our democracy. If he cannot be trusted in that big thing, he cannot be trusted in anything. And that, again, that's why I'm running. That's why I've set my career on hold. It's why I'm devoting my full time and attention to this, because I am so deeply, deeply concerned about the future of our country, and that kind of behavior must be held accountable.
Yeah. And if I could kind of raise an issue that's a little more specific to the African American community, we know that the Congressional District 1 has a huge African American community. And I'll preface it with, I go down to Ware County when I was running for public service commissioner, and I looked at the disparities in Ware County. We go back to Ahmaud Arbery and the disparities that are there that were presented as a result of that. How can the African American community, we talk about trust, and I agree with you, how can the African American community rally behind you and say that we trust Wade when they go to the ballot box? Give the African American community insight that some of the things that you would advocate for and why they should basically go and pull that lever for you, not only at the runoff, but in November.
Sure. So first, my candidacy I consider to be an extension of the service that I've already been and a part of our greater community. My very first board service when I got to Savannah was to serve on the Frank Allen Boys and Girls Club board and help them secure SPLOST funding to greatly expand the physical size of their facility so that they could serve more children. I served locally and at a state level with Georgia Legal Services, providing access to justice and opportunities out of poverty for low-income Georgians. I served at the state level for Georgia Appleseed. And when I was on the Georgia Appleseed board, our goal was revising the juvenile justice code and stopping the school to prison pipeline. I've worked with citizen advocacy here in Savannah for over 30 years in many, many capacities to create in some way a reality of the vision of the beloved community right here in real time on this earth. In terms of issues in Congress, my number one issue is voting rights. Every time I talk, I lead with voting rights. On January 7th, one of my colleagues came to my office and said, "It can't get worse than this." I looked right back at her and I said, "Yes, it can get worse than this." And sure enough, Georgia General Assembly passed Senate Bill 202. It got worse and it made it harder for everybody to vote. But I'm acutely aware that that disparate impact is on our Black communities. And so with voting rights, what specific thing I would advocate for? Let's at least pass the John Lewis bill and restore Department of Justice oversight to voting changes and irregularities. And that's a practical problem or a practical solution to me. Right now, we have all kinds of litigation all over the United States, including here in Georgia. If we restore pre-clearance to the Department of Justice, we'll add some certainty to the process. So let's get that done. Second, I always talk about healthcare and expanding healthcare. And in our part of the world, we know all about underlying conditions now because of the pandemic. And in our part of the world, those underlying conditions are obesity, diabetes, and hypertension. And again, I'm acutely aware that those are disproportionately impactful on our communities of color. Let's expand access and education early in people's lives so they lead healthier, more productive lives. And we lower everybody's insurance rates and premiums because people don't have these chronic long-term diseases later in life. I always talk about education. And when I talk about education, especially early childhood education, and especially and not exclusively daycare. If mother and daddy can't find care for their child, they can't work. And education has a transformative power to change people's lives. So let's make sure we're investing appropriately in education, and again, early in people's lives. Now, with the Supreme Court decision, Roe v. Wade looks like it's going to get reversed. I'm consistently pro-choice. Women have the right to choose their own health care. In our state, it's literally a matter of life and death. It's a health decision. And let's expand Medicaid, by the way. And if the state of Georgia won't do it, then the Congress needs to do it. Affordable housing, we're in crisis mode right now. What the government can do is primarily a matter of investment. And then gun safety. Gun safety, again, front and center on people's minds. I'm glad for the compromise that it appears that the Senate has reached. It's a small start, but it's a start. So those are some of the things that I would advocate for as a member of Congress, and those are things that I've consistently talked about during this campaign. I know I'm going on too long, perhaps, but one other one. Let's admit the reality of climate change, and let's deal with that, and let's deal with the environmental justice issues that are associated with it. We have 3 Superfund sites in Glynn County, 4, depending upon how you count them. As sea levels rise, it's going to disproportionately impact communities of color there in Glynn County. We should have a representative in Congress who is all over that, getting those Superfund sites cleaned up, mitigated, and not just the physical sites, but let's make sure that people who have been exposed have access to healthcare monitoring, and to the extent that they need healthcare help.
You seem to have a feedback. Is there 2 devices on or something in your office?
No, and I apologize for that. No, we're only logged in on 1 device.
Yeah, I'm not hearing feedback.
Yeah, it's like the wind. It's real. Yeah, it's real. It's a reverb almost.
Yeah,
but
it might be on your end. Yeah, I'm not hearing it. I'm wondering, it might be on your end. No. I don't know.
No, I can hear this either on one of y'all's end. I don't have anything going on in here.
Yeah, but we'll keep going. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, we're hearing fine. It's just that was I didn't want the people to not understand everything that he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
The next question I had for you was, and we're not making this claim. It was in the press, and it was by your 2 other opponents that during the primary that said that you were making claims of being a civil rights attorney. I know you did some things with Curtis Cooper, but they were trying to say that it was more with corporations instead of with people to get their civil rights done. Can you clarify that for us?
Sure. I've represented all kinds of clients, both businesses and individuals. I represented a woman who was discriminated against by a big box store. I represented a woman who was sexually harassed at her communications company where she worked. I've represented nonprofits, helped one of the local sororities get 501c3 tax exempt status. So one of my very first big cases was for Dr. Curtis Cooper in the Westside Urban Health Center. And so I provided the legal work so they could stay focused on their mission of providing medical services for underserved populations. With my small business clients, and that's been my bread and butter, if you will, many of them sole proprietors, many of them women, some of them African-American women. They don't have a big HR department. They don't have a big law department. They got me. And I've tried always to make myself available to advise them on not only doing the right thing, the legal thing, but to do the fair thing. And so that's what my career has been. And in 2011, the Savannah Bar Association, my colleagues, my peers, surprised me with the Robbie Robinson Award in recognition of my work on behalf of the profession, on behalf of justice, on behalf of individuals. So that's the kind of work that I've done, and that's the recognition that I have received.
Wade, let's kind of shift gears and talk about an issue that's a national issue. But should you be elected to Congress, one that you would definitely, I know, will be a priority for you, and that is violence in our communities. I talk a lot about, and you'll probably chuckle at this, but I think in America and in organizations, we tend to do things as usual, and we don't do what I call is organizational cleaning and development. But when it comes to crime, and specifically in the 1st Congressional District and the Chatham County, I think we're doing a terrible job with that. How would you advocate for change, and how would you help us to put a spotlight on crime, and violent crime in particular, not only in Chatham County, but throughout the 1st Congressional District?
Sure. Well, nationwide, unfortunately, there has been an increase in violent crime. So it's not simply a local problem, and it's occurred during the pandemic. And I'm sure there are sociologists who are studying what the correlation or the cause. But in terms of what, and you're right, it would be a priority for me. I think we need to invest in things like affordable housing and healthcare and education and job training and all of those things. Help young people understand and be trained in conflict avoidance and give people a sense of hope and a sense of belonging by investing back in our communities and providing them with those opportunities and alternatives that they see a light at the end of the tunnel, hope, something to work for and to be part of.
Okay. We see that you have a whole lot of African American support, which is great when you're running for this position. How did you get those people to back you over the person that has been running for the last two terms, Joyce Griggs?
Well, again, I've been involved in the community since I got here in 1985 in a variety of ways, from Frank Cowan Boys and Girls Club to many, many other ways, working with nonprofits, et cetera. And so I'm not going to be the loudest guy in the room. I'm not the guy with the bullhorn. I'm the guy trying to listen and to solve problems and to get it done. And I think that the people who have supported me and helped me, and I'm very, very grateful for that, grateful beyond measure, beyond any words that I have. I think they shared with me that vision that we need to get someone in Washington who listens to everyone, who gathers the facts, and then gets to work to solve the problems, and who's going to keep coming back to listen and to help and to solve the problem before us. So I think that's why I've gotten the support that I have. And as I've said, I'm so grateful for that.
Okay. Julius, if you go to the next one, I lost my listing here. I gotta refresh. I had it in front of me, but then I lost it.
Okay, we got two or three other big questions. What's your stand on the Calhoun Square renaming campaign that a bunch of advocates here in Chatham County
is, and Mr. Hall, you're freezing up on. I think you asked the question about Calhoun Square.
Yes, sir. Calhoun Square. Okay. What's your stance on Calhoun Square being renamed to the Susie King Taylor Square?
Sure. John C. Calhoun was a South Carolinian, not a Georgian.
Right.
Is the ideological father of the nullification theory, which is the justification for secession during the Civil War. He was a slaveholder and a defender of slavery. It is my opinion that a square in downtown Savannah should not be named for John C. Calhoun. It is my opinion that that square should be renamed for someone or something else that more appropriately represents the history of Savannah.
It's interesting you mentioned that. When I actually do some work with Clemson University, and John C. Calhoun is a big question now as we look at a project we call My Name. And so I'm glad to hear you say that, because not only Thomas Green, who's also in that conversation, but John C. Calhoun has a very, very colorful past, which Julius said, I found my list. But if we can also turn our attention to Weeping Time, there are many in Chatham County who I'm disappointed in our city leadership, who don't understand the legacy and the importance of weeping time, as well as the corridor of MLK where Black businesses were destroyed and taken. So if you could share your opinion on weeping time and how would you advocate at a federal level for that should you be elected?
Sure. Well, of course, I am for weeping time and that very, very sad history. And it's history that we remember. It's history. If we don't know our history, we can't understand our present. We can't see a way to the future. And I do not understand those who would try to muzzle our teachers or hide our history. We need to face up to the reality of our history. And so I would want to find an appropriate way for the district, for the nation, to acknowledge the reality and the history of weeping time. So that's my answer to that.
Okay, so you would advocate for there being some type of commemorative resolution to this.
Yes, again, we need to commemorate and acknowledge our history, both the painful history of our past and those events of the past for which we justifiably celebrate. But the weeping time is horrible, sad, that needs to be remembered and not forgotten.
Okay. There's one other pressing thing before we get to gun control and abortion. So we want you to clear this up so that the voters can understand what transpired and how it transpired, and that is that there's been some literature out where passed around where you're running as a Democrat, but that you in the past you've supported Republicans like Buddy Carter with donations and Meg Heap with donations, and that you've represented Meg Heap at several times. Can you clear that up for us?
Sure. So I'm a Democrat. I'm a lifelong Democrat. My donor history is public, as is anybody's donor history. You see, when you look up Wade Herring donor history, that overwhelmingly I give to Democrats, local and national. I recall giving one time to Buddy Carter. He and I go to church together. The first time he ran is my recollection is, my church members running for Congress, and I made a donation to him. Before the pandemic, we sat in the balcony together. Mr. Carter always sat on the far right. I always sat in the middle, slightly to the left. That's absolutely a true story. So I made a donation to my fellow church member, but now I'm so deeply offended by what he's done and failed to do that I've put my career on hold, and I am running for office to send him home, because as I've said already, I think he forfeited his right to remain in office. With Ms. Heap, I did make a donation to her or two. She was the attorney in our judicial circuit, and I'm a practicing attorney in the circuit. But that does not label me. One donation or two does not label me as this, that, or the other thing. And quite frankly, that effort to label people that way is part of what's wrong with politics in the United States today. If we practice all or nothing at all, we're going to end up with a whole lot of nothing. That's the answer on those two donations.
Okay.
So, Wade, if you're elected and successful, how would you organize and coordinate some of the communication pieces, advocacy pieces, community development pieces throughout the first congressional district. One of the things that I'm very critical of, especially at a local level of public leadership, is the inability of city councils, and this might be any city councils, county commissions, school boards, metropolitan planning committees, to work together in a way that is advantageous to the citizens of that area. How could you kind of galvanize that and also be involved in some of those practices as a congressional leader?
Okay. Well, as a lawyer, my career has been listening to people, gathering facts, and helping craft solutions. And solutions oftentimes means compromise. Again, going back to what I said earlier, if we operate on all or nothing at all, we're going to end up with a whole lot of nothing. Americans have got to get past that. What I've heard over and over again, as I've been on this journey of a campaign, is that our incumbent representative never calls elected officials to ask them, how you doing? What do you need? How can I help? I intend to be a representative who is reaching back to the district and saying, how you doing? What do you need? How can I help? And to use my position as the senior federal elected official of the district to bring to bear resources here in our district. And of course, that would be true for Chatham County as the most populous county, but I got to pay attention to all 50 counties. And so that's a lot of work, and it's going to be incremental, but you got to start somewhere. And as I've said, I've worked all my life, and I'm willing to do that hard work. But the hard work begins with listening and asking. You know, God gave us 2 ears, only one mouth. So I need that. That would be my goal. Let's ask, listen, and then help craft solutions using federal resources that already exist, and get those resources home to our first district.
So you would be willing to bring all the parties together in a room and let's talk about what is good for the whole community, especially the underserved communities. If you got the school board in there, you got the county commission, you got each city, it's 8 cities here, you got everybody that's elected from those cities, all in a room with the head guys, the sheriff, the school board president, superintendent, the tax commissioner, the coroner. You get everybody in the room instead of everybody operating outside. You get them all in the room and say, okay, let's work together and let's get some things done. And nobody here is doing that because everybody is on different sides. And like you said, if you work hard on nothing, you're going to end up with nothing. We need to be working together instead of in silos. So I'm hoping that you would do that.
I would be willing to do that. And let me say this: we need to do things differently here in coastal Georgia. You know, we like to boast that those folks up in Atlanta don't understand us, and we do things different down here, and all of that. And some of that's good, but there's some bad that goes with that, right? So I agree with you. We need to be more unified. Doesn't mean we have to agree on everything, but let's work together to make this place a better place to live for everybody who lives here.
That's correct. Because that's one of the things that I see. You don't see the state delegation talking to the county commission and the city at the same time, and the school board at the same time, the board of elections at the same time. All these people matter if we get together and we come up with a consensus on things that need to be done. so that that person, Buddy Carter, has never done that. It don't matter what party you're from. You're in a position to make everybody's life better in for the position that you're serving in. And if you can, that's your job and your obligation to do. So we want a leader that understands that that is his job. Let me get all these people in the room, and so that we can talk. And I can listen to this side, I can listen to this side, and we can come in the middle, and let's see if we can get things done. But we need leaders like that. I'm talking about the state delegation, the county commissioner, each one of the cities, everybody. They need to be in the room. Even community leaders need to be in that
Right.
room, so that everybody can have a voice, so that everybody, it could be a 2 or 3 day summit, where you listening to what everybody has, not just those people who are up there, who everybody, the head people. You need to listen to those people down below, so that they can tell you what we're needing, what we're lacking in our community. And
And
that's just an idea in case you win. So it could be, you can steal that idea from me.
well, and I think and I've said this to somebody during the week, the last person that really did that well and represented us in Congress, a lot of people don't remember Jack Kingston. Well, you can call Jack Kingston what you want, but a lot of people really value him because Jack was a person that you felt you could go to, talk to, approach, and I didn't even know, I was a young kid then. I didn't even know he was a Republican, which is not a bad or a good thing. But what I'm saying is he did those very things. He was able to galvanize support regardless of his affiliation. He was well respected and liked throughout the congressional district. And if I could offer this question as well, I want to go back and talk, as we talk about African American communities, and go back to the Trayvon Martins, the Ahmaud Arbery's of the world, these massive shootings, and not only talk about gun control, but talk about the assault and the attack and the hunting of Black males in our communities, and how can we advocate for policy at a federal level that would allow us to do some more training, or you might offer some other ideas, Wade, that will help us to decrease that stigmatism and that pandemic that we're seeing in our communities.
Sure. I think it starts with national standards. The chiefs of police have acknowledged that national standards are appropriate and would be helpful. If you'll recall, it was the senator from South Carolina, the Republican senator from South Carolina, who put a stop to those discussions on that legislation. That legislation needs to be reintroduced, and we need to start there. And then when bad cops do bad things, they need to be criminally prosecuted according to the laws of their state and based upon the facts and the laws of what happened. But I do think what we need is national standards. We have thousands and thousands of police forces across the United States. Think of how many we have just in Chatham County. And there are no federal national standards that apply. So that needs to be changed. It looked like we were headed there, and then the colleagues on the other side of the aisle put up a roadblock, but we got to get started back on that.
Yeah, it's interesting too. As you were talking, it's interesting that we had the January 6th issue and how that is disregarded for the travesty that it is. And yet on the other side of that, as you talk about our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, how that other issue is ignored in a sense. And so as you juxtapose the two, it just becomes a very interesting illustration that I think, we've got to do better in Washington. And I think we have gotten to a point where it's become so divisive. And it's take all, winners take all, instead of how can we develop win-win solutions? Or as I like to look at things from a both ends perspective, at the end of the day, no one wants to walk away a loser, and no one should. But what are some ways that we can collaborate and take away things in a way that benefits both sides as much as possible?
Right.
Okay. So one of my questions is, would you be willing to we understand that there's somebody got shot in City Market last night. Somebody got shot in Liberty City, I think it was the night before.
Are you kidding?
Uh,
Wow.
it's just a lot of gun problems in Chatham County at this time. And I know you got 15, 16 counties, but in Chatham County, where you see a problem, I guess that's where leadership steps in. And should you be elected, would you be willing to get those police chiefs and those sheriffs and the sheriff of Chatham County and the police chiefs in in these municipalities, and we all sit down and have those conversations on how, because it needs to be some better policing some kind of way, because it's too many people riding around with guns and you stopping people for speeding. And when it's people riding around with guns, these are the cars that should be targeted. We don't want to profile anybody, but still there has to be some kind of way for us to. These kids aren't walking up there shooting; they're driving shooting, and getting out their cars and shooting and drive-bys and everything else and driving away. So, would you be open to getting all law enforcement together so you can have those conversations also?
Well, I think it's not only a question of law enforcement, but it's a question of all community leaders, our neighborhood association presidents, our nonprofit leaders, our church leaders. And I know they've been working on it already. I know it's a grave concern to a lot of people. As we've all touched on, there are a lot of silos, though, in coastal Georgia. What can we do to bring people together so that we can work on these kinds of problems together as a community? And in terms of what a congressional representative could do, what resources could I help bring to bear in our district? Usually that's going to, from a federal standpoint, that's usually going to mean money. And then is there federal legislation that, of course, would apply nationally, not just to Chatham County or Glenn County or Ware County, but would there be federal legislation that we should be working on? Common sense gun safety, mental health, affordable housing, those things that I already talked about, and addressing violence in our communities. So, but yes, I'd be willing to work with law enforcement, but not just law enforcement, but everybody in the community, because it's going to take everybody working together to solve this very, very serious and tragic problem of gun violence.
One follow-up with that. Now, that was should you be elected. How about if you're not elected? Are you willing to stay in the big picture to try to coordinate and organize some of these things to happen? Because one thing that I see is that every time that there's an election, that's when people pop up and they don't stay involved enough to let the people see that they are doing things, that they are engaged. And we want people who, if you're in the race and then you lose, you need to stay in the community doing things, organizing things, so that people can see your commitment. They can see your engagement, your involvement to change things. That makes a difference when people see it then. You got some people come around every 4 years and want to run, So we want to make sure that everybody listening, that when you get these seats, run for these positions, should you not win, that you still need to be engaged after the loss,
Sure. Well, as I've explained, I was engaged before I declared for office, and I'm the kind of person, if I'm not elected, then I'm the kind of person I will remain engaged after.
Okay. That's exactly what we want to hear, to make sure that you will. Now, on a woman's right to choose, I know you touched on it briefly a few minutes ago. Robert, you had that question.
Right. Well, and we'll go back. Well, and I think that's an excellent question. One of the things, and I always preface this thing, so my apologies to our viewers, but I'm very passionate about issues, especially government oversight and overly intrusion of its citizens. And so this is, one of the things with women's reproductive rights. I grew up Catholic. I have my views on that. There's a certain limit that we need to understand where what's right and wrong and what's good or bad or what's the gray area for women and their rights, right? And so, what is your stance on that way? I think we're witnessing a government that is getting way too involved with what people's choices are, and that's in so many ways. And this is just one way I believe that it's opening a precedent where government can come in and tell people how to do, when to pee, when not to pee, when to eat. And I think that's just we're going down a dangerous road. But what are your thoughts about women's reproductive rights? One, and B, how does that impact or set a precedent for future rights, such as voting rights and other pieces that impact our lives as citizens?
We seem to be having some connectivity issues with the broadcast, but your question was my views on women's reproductive rights, and I absolutely believe that a woman has the right to choose. If, as it appears, the Supreme Court is going to reverse Roe v. Wade, then Congress should enact federal, national legislation to a woman. The most important people in my life have been women. My two grandmothers, my mother, my wife, my two sisters, my daughter, all the women to make the right decision about their health care and about their bodies. And that's between them and their doctors. That's not up to the legislature. That's not up to the government. And I agree with you, Dr. Bryant, that this is a dangerous precedent. It erodes the right of privacy. That's what Roe v. Wade was based on, was the right of privacy. And this will be an erosion of that right of privacy that impacts so many things that Americans hold dear, including basic things like contraception and who you can sleep with and not sleep with, and what color person you can sleep with. All of those cases, all of those landmark cases are based upon the right of privacy. And it looks like now the Supreme Court is getting ready to do the wrong thing and reverse that. So if that is what happens, Congress needs to act. The other person in this Democratic primary has said, send it back to the states. If it goes back to the states, at least half the states have basically already outlawed a woman's right to choose. They've outlawed abortion. So women in 50% of the country will not have that right. That is why Congress will need to act if the Supreme Court reverses Roe v. Wade.
Mr. Hall, I think we got about 10 more minutes. Wait, what is, I think this is a fun question. We've been so serious the whole time. What is one part of your campaign, your platform, that has not really been able to get your policy piece that you would like to give a little more spotlight to that hasn't throughout the campaign?
Sure. We've had an art gallery in the campaign office with a rotating exhibition of art, and it's been profiled some, and we've had some people stop by and see it. But I wish people knew more about that. What's up right now, I think, is a photography exhibit from the 50th anniversary of SNCC, and many of those people. So 10 years ago, we're up at the 60th anniversary now. So 10 years ago, and many of those people from that 50th anniversary have passed now and aren't with us. So I'm very grateful that we have that exhibit here in the campaign office. We've also got an immigration series in place that was loaned to us by Dr. Walter Evans, and we feel very proud about that. And so, art and culture, it's how It's how we make sense of our lives. It's how we tell our stories. It's how we collectively share our stories. Sometimes we don't give it the importance that it deserves. I think there are many lessons from the pandemic, and one of the lessons of the pandemic is you have to have a way to process this thing that we call life. And one of the ways that you do that is through art, whether it's paint or photography or the written word, music. So that's one of the things. Thanks for that question. Great question. I wish people knew more about what we were trying to do with this campaign.
Well, here's another one, Julius. Julius is a Georgia Tech fan. Somebody told me, but I think you and I both share a special place in Athens. But what are your thoughts about the football season upcoming?
Go Dawgs. Very proud of their national championship. I was in law school during the national championship game against Notre Dame, and that was a great experience that first time, and so it was good to have it that again. Barbara Dooley and Vince Dooley told this story on themselves, so there's a big get together for the VIPs the night before the Georgia Notre Dame game, and the president of Notre Dame is a very distinguished Jesuit priest. And Barbara Dooley goes over to the president of Notre Dame and says that she has been praying to God about the football game. And the president of Notre Dame said, "My God doesn't have time for football." And Barbara Dooley said, "Well, mine does." And of course, we know who won that football game.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to Robin and I'll probably do the last. We'll let you do your closing, and then the last 4 minutes we'll do because we want to tell everybody about the runoff elections for all the seats. I think it's 6 positions that we need to talk about for the last 4 or 5 minutes. But go ahead and give us a two-minute closing, up to 2 minutes, and then we thank you for your participation. We know that you and Ms. Griggs both are out there beating the streets to get everybody out, and that's what we'll be trying to do with this presentation. It'll be aired once or twice, probably 2 more times before Tuesday. And she's been on the show also with, we got 30 shows here. She's been on 1 or 2 of the other shows. So, we want to be even and fair to everybody. So whichever one of you all come out of it, that's who we're supporting. So go ahead and give us your closing, sir.
Sure. Well, again, thank you for this opportunity to spend this time with you today, and for the opportunity to share some of my background and some of my perspectives with your listeners. Again, I'm Wade Herring. I'm running for Congress in Georgia's 1st district. As I know you've heard and will hear again, the runoff is on June 21st. I need people to go back to the polls and vote for Wade Herring. I'm running because of January 6th. But I'm more than a one-issue candidate. I'm for voting rights. I'm for health care, expanded health care early in people's lives. I'm for education, and with young children and daycare, especially affordable housing, a woman's right to choose, common sense, gun safety. I've brought together and worked with people from all over the community and all over the district. And that's why I have been endorsed by Representative Al Williams from Liberty County, and former Mayor of Hinesville, Jim Thomas, and former Savannah Mayor Otis Johnson, former Mayor Edna Jackson, now a state representative, and many, many others. I've been endorsed by the Progressive Turnout Project, the AFL-CIO, and supported by Moms Demand Action. And I'm request that the voters help me win this runoff. so we can get on to the main event, and that is to send Buddy Carter home. Thank you.
Okay, we thank you, and we look forward to seeing you out there the next couple of days. We got 4 days before the election, so we'll see you before somewhere out there on the campaign trail.
No, thank you very much.
Yeah, take care.
Right. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Okay, let's run over these four. Well, we got six races, and we got about 2 or 3 minutes. We got 6 races that's coming up this Tuesday. You got that particular race with in the 1st Congressional District for U.S. House. You got Herring and Joyce Griggs.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got Governor Kwanzaa Hall running against I don't know who Charlie Baylor, right?
I believe so. I can't.
Yeah, Charlie.
Let me look overall.
It's Charlie Baylor.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you got Secretary of State. You got D versus B.
D versus B.
D versus B. And Labor Secretary, you got Bodie and our girl. What's her name?
Labor. Nicole Horn.
Nicole Horn and Bodie. So
yeah,
that was a pretty good one also.
Yeah.
And Insurance Commissioner, you got Janet Laws Robinson against somebody.
Yeah. All I know is y'all might want to go vote for that one. You wonder why your insurance rate's so jacked up? Your insurance commissioner, that's your gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Y'all gonna start realizing why your vote matters.
Yeah. And then you got Recorder's Court Judge
Joe Huffman.
Our man, Joe Huffman.
Joe Huffman.
Our man, Joe Huffman.
Vote Joe. Now, Joe Huffman, I want my 1,000. I'm just kidding.
Joe Huffman. Vote Joe.
No, and in all seriousness, Julie, I've met Joe. The one thing I like about Joe, I've never met him before until I, was introduced to him, but I've seen him at several events. The one thing I was saying, and I'm not being funny about white folk and white guys in Savannah, they don't necessarily go to his village and in the hoods. But Joe was out there, and Joe was comfortable, and he was very, very much wanting to meet the people. That's the type of person you want in that bench.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, he's comfortable anywhere he goes. He
right.
can tell me where he's at, and he's all over the city, everywhere.
Right.
And he'll talk to anybody, and he's real. Yes. He isn't stuffy or anything, asking you crazy questions or nothing. He's real comfortable in this person talking to you, and like I said, he's from Chatham County, so he understands the people here.
He never was the first graduate.
Yeah, he's been a police officer here, and now a lawyer here. So he understands the people. So that's
and not only just understands, but willing to learn the intricacies of certain communities. Like I said on another show somewhere, it's one thing to understand that Black folk have certain disparities nationwide socially. But when you're dealing with a mother who got a traffic ticket because she had to go to work and leave her children home, you don't want to find that person or give that person probation because you're adding layers of foolishness. He understands how to learn why that's bad. So that's what I value. Yeah.
And one other thing is about this judge, Joe Huffman, is that he has support from both sides. To the extreme to the one side, to the extreme to the other side. He has support from both sides. So if you can get support from both sides, which a judge should be able to do,
I agree.
if you got support from both sides of the spectrum, then that shows what kind of impact that you had on these people when you met them, because they automatically like you, they automatically believed you, and what you said you would do from the bench. So that presence that he projects is just an awesome presence. That I met him. I was sent to go and talk to him. I talked to him. I thought it'd be a 10-minute conversation. We ended up talking an hour and a half. Great guy. And I think that that'll be an awesome judge in Recorder's Court for Chatham County with Joe Huffman.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. Anything
what else
else?
You got? So locally, what you got? I know we got I think the race of all times in Chatham County is that 5th District School Board race. You got Paul, Paul and Teresa.
Board
race. See, you biased. When Tanya clobbered that lady, you ain't worried about no more.
No, I forgot about that one. The school board race. You got Teresa Watson and Paul Smith. Y'all make sure y'all go out to the polls. You got a great election there. You got two good people. So make sure you go out and choose one. Do your research. Call them and ask some questions or something. If you're having a hard time. So you got two good people. So there's 7 things gonna be on there. You got U.S. Congressional District 1 for the House of Representatives. You got Lieutenant Governor, Labor Secretary, Secretary of State, Insurance Commissioner, Recorder's Court Judge of Chatham County, and the School Board District 5 runoff. So make sure y'all go out and vote. We got all these things coming up. Don't forget that we got Juneteenth. We got Juneteenth at 38th Street.
You talking about Kwanzaa crawl?
Everybody who supported Kwanzaa need to be at Juneteenth, 38th Street Park. That's where we'll be at when this is over. Right now, when this is over, we'll be at 38th Street Park. Set up, come out and visit us at our tent, and get on. Robert will be out there interviewing everybody. So y'all.
This is all we have.
Right now, but you better be in Savannah in a minute.
I am there. I'm about to hit 38th Street.
Oh, okay. 38th Street. That's where
I'll be all over.
Huh?
I was over. I was in Boston last night with Steph Curry. Y'all know light skins are back. Hey, I'm just saying.
Steph turned it out. Steph ain't no joke.
I take Steph could have beat them jokers by himself. But anyway, I guess we're gonna get
that. We did forget to ask all these candidates though.
Mm-hmm.
Except I think we asked 1 or 2 of them was their position on CRT. That was the only question that we didn't get to do. Maybe we'll do it when Joyce and Wade, after we see who wins that and we get them back on. Maybe we'll have all these candidates after these runoffs. Maybe we can get them back on, because it has to be a get out the vote effort on the Democratic side that has to be in full force, and they're gonna need everybody. So they don't need to stop being chinchy and thinking that they got something in the bag. They need to pull out all the stops, and we're here to help.
Yeah. And honestly, one of the things I don't know if there'll be a special show Tuesday night, but that might be a show for either Better Savannah or Alicia to do a special election night Tuesday night, and some of us can be out in the field and interviewing folk or just
Let's find out where we can go at. Let's see where we might be at one of the it'll be 10, 11 o'clock before we know which races are.
Well, not only that, maybe we could. Here's the thing: if Alicia, we can go over there and hang out with her and have the news going and see what's what.
Okay. Well, let's work it out.
Playing out her show. Now I can hear that. I ain't actually come playing out my show. You and that Julius Hall.
She wants to plan it out. Anyway.
Yeah. She about beat me up the other day, but that's okay.
Y'all stay tuned Monday night for Candid Lakeisha. She gonna have a special guest on there too.
Oh Lord.
We're at 1:05, so you ready to go? An hour and 5 minutes. So
yeah, I'm about to head on out to the 38th Street and do part 2 of this.
All right. Talk with you
okay.
later.
like that.